Good evening and welcome to the February 18, 2025 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to have Greg Mann, our Director of Planning and Code Administration, lead us in the pledge. If everyone could please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Greg. Next on our agenda is reflection, and I'd like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all very much. Next, we have approval of minutes. Tonight, we have one set of minutes before the council. It is from the regular meeting on February 3rd. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from the regular session held on February 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Okay, and before we vote, tech team, if you can allow Councilmember Wu, who is not feeling well, is joining us remotely. Rob, just unmute yourself and feel free to vote when we vote. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from February 3rd. What is the pleasure? Or all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Thank you, Rob. Carries 5-0. Next, we have our consent agenda. Are there any questions about any of the three consent items, or does someone want to move the consent agenda?
I'd like to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0. Next, we have appointments, and tonight we have one appointment and several reappointments to different city committees. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move for the appointment of Sandy Pike from the business community to the Economic and Business Development Committee for a 3-year term, and for the reappointment of Beverly Kowalczyk, thank you, in the Gaithersburg community to a 2-year term to the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee, and also Lori Yankowski from Washington
You got
Center.
a couple of the harder
All right.
last names in this one.
to the same committee.
And there are more.
Oh, and the reappointment of Althea Lloyd White from Newport Estates to the 2-year term to the Educational Enrichment Committee, and Urania Benicio to the Multicultural Affairs Committee to a 2-year term. She's from the Montgomery Village community.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Rob, did I hear you vote?
Aye.
Okay, that carries 5-0. Is there anybody whose name we just mentioned here tonight? Okay. Oh, okay. Just stand up. Tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Urania Benicio with the Met Committee.
Thank you so much. Let's give her a round of applause. As I always say at our meetings, serving on a city committee is a great way to contribute meaningfully to the business of the city, get to know how the city works, meet like-minded people. I highly recommend it. There's a couple dozen city committees, and they are open for your consideration. So just let us know if you're interested. Next, we have our courtesy review, and I'm going to invite Jasmine Forbes from our planning department to lead us in this discussion.
Okay, good evening. SAS before you tonight for a courtesy review on application ASDP-9825-2024 and seeking guidance on how to proceed with this application. The applicant is requesting to amend previously approved schematic development plan STP-7362-2016 to remove condition number 2. In 2018, the Mayor City Council approved the STP for a 365-unit apartment building and associated parking garage to be constructed over 2 phases. As a condition of the STP approval, the second phase of the project cannot commence until the Saul property receives STP approval, which will establish street network for vehicle pedestrian connections. In 2017, approved sketch plan for Saul property had identified a road connection adjacent to the subject site. To date, Sol has not progressed beyond the sketch plan stage, and the applicant has revised their plans to construct the project within their property boundaries in one single phase. And on the screen, you can see the proposed site plan. This application was reviewed under the zoning ordinance in effect at the time of submission in accordance with Section 24-1.2 of the zoning ordinance that was passed by council in 2024. Section 24-198C of the previous zoning ordinance states that for amendments involving a change of use or changes other than to use, staff shall present the application to council as a courtesy review. It further states, following a courtesy review presentation by staff, the council shall either deem the application has a minor effect and thereby direct the planning commission to make a final decision, or the council may direct the amendment to be referred to the planning commission for further evaluation, public hearing, and recommendation. The council shall thereafter approve or disapprove the recommendation of the planning commission. So staff recommends that the council find this application to have a minor effect and direct the planning commission to hold the public hearing and make a final decision on the amendment. The amendment is to remove the required phasing condition in the previous SDP plan. All other modifications to the plan will not trigger the need for an ASDP and would have been reviewed as part of the final site plan with planning commission. And at the moment, a public hearing has not been scheduled yet, but after this meeting, a public hearing will be scheduled. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have this evening.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. I wanted to acknowledge that we've received a dozen, maybe 24 emails about this over the last few days. And the emails, like what's actually before us is a very technical amendment that does not change the substance of what was approved in 2018 by previous council. And so I think there is some misconception among the writers of those emails, because it seems like the thrust of the messages we've been receiving are we should reconsider the project, and that is not legally before us. So as I see it, as I see this, it is a minor technical amendment. And while I understand, like in 2018 and the year leading up to the vote of that council, this was a controversial project particularly among the immediate neighbors, and some of those emotions and arguments are still extant at this point, and we're starting to see that a little bit here, but it's not really before us. And in fact, what the applicant has before us, not for approval, but what they're actually proposing to build is smaller in terms of the height, the building height, and less dense by like 60 units or something like that from what was approved in 2018. So although in this system of government, as I'm reminded a lot, I don't actually have a vote here. If I did have a vote, I would err on the side of this has a minor effect, and I direct it to the Planning Commission, which is the body that is supposed to deal with these sort of technical amendments. So that's where I would be, and I will open it up to whoever would like to go next. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with the mayor. None of us on this council or on this dais actually voted for this project in 2018. I actually testified against it as a citizen after I had run for council and lost the first time. But as the mayor said, that's not what's in front of us right now. What we're being asked is removing the condition, which is no longer necessary, a minor change, and it is. I mean, it is. We're not being asked to weigh in on the merits of the application. That is a job for the Planning Commission. I appreciate the passion and the concern of the residents that sent us these many emails. the folks in the colonnade. Like I said, I joined you in testifying against this project. But that, again, that is not what's before us. I do agree that what is being asked is a minor effect, and I think that we should send it to the Planning Commission for them to decide.
Thank you. Jamil?
Frank, a clarifying question on process.
Sure.
If the council was to determine that this was a major a change, what winds its way through the planning commission and then finally to the council again is just the removal of the phasing, or would there be other pieces there?
Well, and
Oh, sorry,
Jasmine may
or
be
Jas-
able
whoever the
to
right person is for
It'll
that.
better
be-
answer that because there is more than just the phasing. They're also talking about reducing units, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, so they're reducing the
And the
number of
floors.
units and the height, but overall, it's to reduce the, remove that second condition
Okay.
in the previous approved.
So if
SCP.
it was deemed a major change, what would come back potentially to the council is a recommendation from the planning commission, potential conditions or not, and then the council could agree or disagree, remove conditions, add other conditions, and have through more flexibility?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm more on that side of it. Just have a major change.
Okay. Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jasmine. I too agree with the mayor and Councilmember McNulty that this is a minor change, and I would be voting that way.
Okay, Neil?
All right, I guess it's my turn. So I was on the dais when this came before us back in 2018. I did vote against it on the basis that I thought it was overly dense for the location. But as the mayor pointed out, it was approved on a 3-2 vote. At this point, looking at it, at what's being proposed as an amendment, it reduces the density by a significant number of units. It reduces the height, particularly in the parts of the building that face the colonnade. I know there's some concern about traffic, but we have a traffic report that the Planning Commission is equipped to evaluate, as well as the rest of it. So I think my feeling at this point is this is, in fact, not a major change, and we'd like to see what the Planning Commission has to say about it.
Thanks, Neil. Rob, do you want to weigh in on this?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so I appreciate the presentation, the explanation. I actually was on the council at the time and voted for this project. And I do recall the conversation, well, a lot of the conversation actually was about the traffic flow, how you access the site, and kind of the impact on the area. And that was one of the reasons why the condition was put in place, because of the it was at Kmart, I guess, but now I guess it's Home Goods. And being able to have the access point in that direction as a mitigation for traffic flow for the project as it was presented at the time. And so looking at what is being presented now, it's significantly different than what was presented at the time, and whether or not that requires the same sorry, I don't know how that cough would have come across on a microphone, so I had to stop and mute myself. And so, you know, all of that is impacting an aspect that was heavily deliberated at the time. And so I don't see this. I mean, although it seems like a minor amendment, I don't necessarily know if it is in effect major or minor. And so that's where I side with Councilmember Hernandez, that the implications of the change based on what was deliberated at the time and what's being proposed now, I think should come to council for deliberation and final decision.
Okay, thank you. And we hope you're feeling better. Would someone like to make a motion? If I'm counting the straws here, it looks like there's a 3-2 in favor of this being a minor effect and directing it to the Planning Commission.
Mayor, I move that the council deem this application as having a minor effect and direct the planning commission to make the final decision.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
A.
Okay, it carries 3-2. Thank you very much, Jasmine.
Thank you. Mayor, before Jasmine leaves us, I believe this is her first time presenting to the mayor and council as our new community planning manager.
Oh,
Okay.
If you sing more of me.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, next is public comments. It's the time the mayor and council like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on any topic. Usually I would say, except whatever we're having a public hearing about. We have no public hearings tonight, so any city-related matter you'd like to speak about, we ask that you state your name and address, or if you prefer, your neighborhood. Keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of material to deliver, by all means, use your 3 minutes and then send us the rest in writing. It'll be considered just the same as oral testimony. Do we have anybody in the room who would like to speak tonight? Come on up. And anybody else here who'd like to speak, feel free to line up behind Omo. Go right ahead.
Now?
Yeah.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Amadamola Williams, OMO for short. I reside in the Gaithersburg community, Villages of Gaithersburg. And I'm here to address the elephant in the room. So back in December, police were called to a residence near the Summit area where an individual was displaying erratic behavior. He seems to be under the influence, and he was bleeding from his wrist. And so I was watching the body footage, and a lot of it didn't add up towards what the police statement has put out. It seems there's like a issue with transparency with the community and police, and also with our city leadership. A community group have reached out to the council members to ask, can we meet and talk about this? Because I'm pretty sure that if somebody is dying and bleeding, the first thing you would do is render aid. In the video, there was no aid rendered. If any, the police was cursing, and it was more so, get away from me. It's not until maybe like 14 minutes later, EMS came, and it's not until the guy has passed away. So I'm telling you this because I just want to point out that there needs to be more transparency. And I don't want to say better training, because there's training on, racial bias, about this and that. But when this training is not implemented on the field, now what? This guy's dead. There was no immediate first aid when the police came. I don't know how like this protocol works. I'm pretty sure the dispatch said there's somebody bleeding to death. Why did police show up and not EMS show up? And when police show up, why didn't police render aid? It was just observing, talking to people, walking. This guy was bleeding to death, and he passed away. I just want to point that out. Something needs to happen. That's all.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Jo St. George, founder and chair of the Women of Color for Equal Justice. I am here to speak on behalf of our organization, which is a justice center that focuses on criminal justice reform and really safety for the community. I live 2 blocks away. I'm in the Gaithersburg station. And when we learned about the in-custody death of Mr. Garcia and the circumstances around his death, it made me very disturbed. Disturbed for the following reasons. He was a victim. I spoke and went and spoke to the people who provide security in and around that building and around our community. And the notice and the call that they received was that this was a victim who had been injured due to some altercation, and that he really that there should have been help rendered. But instead of help being rendered and EMS called on appropriately, He was treated as if he was the criminal, and now he's not alive. And that does not make me, as a resident, feel safe. It doesn't make us feel that there's confidence in our police department in being able to make the proper assessments between whether or not someone needs aid or whether or not someone is engaged in criminal behavior, especially when a gentleman is on the ground bleeding. And so I'm deeply disappointed as a civil rights activist, former political action chair for the NAACP for the state of Maryland, committed to criminal justice reform, to have this happen right here in my community, blocks away, and literally blocks away from this city council, without the accountability and the transparency when our community is asking to speak, to find out, to speak to this council and find out what are the policies and procedures. Is this something that can be done and changed? Because I introduced a bill at the state level that would require the public health services to be to come first before police, for us to make commitments to people with mental health issues. And it does not seem like all the work that has been done for a long time, I'm now a 10-year resident, is really being effectuated by our police officers, who I know have been properly trained, who we know have the skill sets to do what is necessary to make their community safe. And so we're just asking for an opportunity to speak with you all to find out what are some policies and procedures, especially in the investigation process. We know the state is investigating at the state level because this was a in-custody death. But the community needs to hear from you, and they really want to be able to feel like there's transparency, that you all really care. And when the rejection to speak to us has been given, it hurts our hearts. And so I want you to hear from my heart as a resident here and on behalf of the community that we just want to make sure that we are truly making Gaithersburg safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Rabitha Moses. I am too here also to talk about Marvin Garcia and the circumstances surrounding his death. When the city of Gaithersburg police officers failed to render first aid while Mr. Garcia lay bleeding on the ground and restrained him face down without rendering aid, that concerns me and a lot of the other residents throughout the city of Gaithersburg. We all know that Montgomery County, there's been a lot of police brutalities and police-related deaths throughout Montgomery County against minorities and people of color. We just want to ask that you all open up your ears, heart, and your mind to meet with community members in order to address this issue. And God forbid that you all have children, grandchildren, relatives. If one day they're out in a different state or town where you all have no power, and they get confronted by police and something bad happens to them. I understand that this is not your family member that passed away and you all are not directly impacted, but many of us in the community are directly impacted. And if you all are representing the city of Gaithersburg, don't only represent the elite of Gaithersburg, represent the marginalized voices of Gaithersburg, the most vulnerable community of Gaithersburg. And that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Demetrius Enriquez from the Gateway Apartment Complex. I'm not here on behalf of the involving the death of that man, but I would like to say that I echo what they're saying, and I think that that is something that needs to be addressed. But for the sake of time, I do have a separate issue regarding organizing at the Gateway. I want to start by thanking Sebastian from Neighborhood Services for his help in resolving an issue that we had. We are aware that he can only, enforce the rules as they are, but that's exactly why I'm here. We were pretty disappointed in the resolution that we were given After we were no longer allowed to use the Community Resource Center at our apartment complex for our meetings, we had asked if we had been able to use the clubhouse that is attached to the leasing office. We were told and then confirmed by city staff that the landlord does not have to allow us to use the space without the supervision of property management. We think this severely undermines tenant protections and tenant rights in our city. As one of our main goals of the Tenants Association, we try to inform tenants of their rights, and we also help them exercise their rights within the city. With this decision, we are left with no good choices for organizing. If we do want to meet on site, then we will be forced to either meet under the supervision of management, which obviously may lead to people not giving their full complaints or their full opinions. Our only other option, if we do want to be without supervision of management, is we have to invite people into our own homes, which normally we wouldn't mind, but we have 700 plus units, and at our meetings we regularly have 50 plus tenants come into our meetings, and so fitting that many people into one of our apartments obviously would be challenging. And then lastly, we could also find a place offsite, but then that burdens tenants with with us having to go and find a place that would be willing to host, again, 50 plus people, and then that comes with its own set of costs, and then it's also requiring tenants to drive or otherwise commute to some place in their few hours that they have away from work, and having somebody else's space comes with its own challenges. So we see this decision as pretty much a subtle way to just prevent or otherwise set a roadblock for tenant organizing. If we are unable to organize, the protections that the city has are functionally toothless. And we just want to ask the council that they either revise the decision, allowing us to reasonably use the space that we pay for, or revise the law so that tenants may organize more freely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of Silver Spring Justice Coalition. The Silver Spring Justice Coalition.
Well, hold on. Can you please state your name? And...
Sorry, my name is Jill Segge.
Thank you.
And I'm a resident of Montgomery County, longtime resident. I'm also an attorney, but I'm here just as a concerned advocate. So the Silver Spring Justice Coalition was formed by various civil rights organizations, a coalition, and religious organizations who are concerned about police violence and how to bring the power back to the community so that we won't have any more needless deaths. Almost every person that's been killed since this organization has formed has been Black or brown, and there has been no reason to have these people killed. In every single situation. Most of the situations, a person is undergoing mental health issues. We're not threatening anybody. This man that we're talking about today, Marvin Salamanca Garcia, certainly was not threatening anybody. He was calling out to God. He was calling out for help. He was bleeding profusely, and the police officers were concerned in the video about getting blood on them. But there is blood on your hands as well, because we asked you to clarify policies that could have made this not happen. And you said, oh, it's still under investigation. Why can't you talk to us about policies? Why can't you talk to us about why you're not enforcing policies that you already do have in your code of conduct to render first aid, to value life here in Gaithersburg? Why can't you talk to us about why when the EMT hadn't come for 14 minutes, there was no aid rendered, and it was only rendered after he stopped breathing completely? Why did the police officers not take him to the hospital that's right near here? All of those things can be handled through policy where people know that they're accountable. You aren't even accountable to even answer an inquiry from the community. We would get better treatment if we went to Target and asked to return something because the product was defective. Here, someone's life was taken for no reason, and this is happening again and again in Montgomery County to brown and Black people, and we need answers. We need it now. We had to come and invade this council meeting because we asked politely, and you just turned us off, turned us down. We're not going to take that anymore. We are going to keep coming until we get answers, until we get changes in the city.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Davis. I am the convener of the Black Coalition for Excellence in Education, and we are a nonprofit organization that serves all of Montgomery County and focuses on elevating the outcomes and the experiences of Black families, Black students, and Black staff in our public school system. When I moved with my family to Montgomery County 50 years ago, despite my youthful appearance, the county was 4.1% Black. You could go all day long without seeing anybody who wasn't white. Just let that sink in my lifetime. So you, Ms. Henderson, wouldn't be there. You all would be there, right? You wouldn't see anyone who was Asian. You wouldn't see anyone who was Hispanic. And in my lifetime, the browning and the blackening and the beautiful diversity of this county has far outpaced the change in the way the county runs. It is fundamentally much the same as it was then, as is this country, as we're seeing right now. And so what I'm here to talk about is not the facts of what happened. You know what happened. I'm not here to talk specifically about Gaithersburg. I'm here to inquire and encourage you to inquire about how you want to be presented and how you want to move for the people that you represent. Let's just start with the way that we're engaging right now. There's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of nonverbals that are going on. And what I find throughout this county, and is true, is that our elected officials are very practiced at removing your humanity when we're talking about inhumanity, particularly for people who are not white and not wealthy. That's a place to start in terms of building community and being representative. Show that you care, not just talk about it. That's number one. Number two, I'm asking you to inquire into why you imagine that you have any right to say no to people that you represent who want to talk. More importantly, to say no to listen. It is not within your charter. It is not within your job description. You were not voted into those positions for that. It's not a right that you have. And so inquire about why you are asserting a right that you don't have. Because unless we deal with that, we're not going to move forward. Together or apart at all, we're going to stay right where we are. And you, again, Ms. Henderson, you wouldn't even be here. So I applaud your sitting up there. But on the other hand, I will say as a Black woman, we expect more from you. I'm not in Gaithersburg. I live in Silver Spring, but it doesn't matter. I'm speaking metaphorically, practically, systemically, institutionally to say, bring your humanity to inhumane situations.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Alex Vasquez, for the record. I am here on the behalf of the CASA organization, and my official title is Organizing Director for the organization. An organization that is no stranger for the residents here of Gaithersburg. As you all may know, we've been advocating for the rights of the well-being of immigrant, Black and brown and working communities here in Gaithersburg and beyond. And tonight I come before you not only as a representative of this community, but as someone who cares deeply about the health and safety of all individuals in this city. A few weeks ago, I received a call from a community member here in Gaithersburg, a next-door neighbor, who told me about a man named Marvin Salamanca Garcia, a name that should be known by every person in this city. Marvin was handcuffed in clear distress and taken to a local hospital, where just days later he passed away. His story doesn't just end there. It speaks to something much deeper. It speaks to the suffering of a family who lost a loved one and a community who is left wondering how this could have happened. We don't know yet all the details about why Marvin was handcuffed while in distress, but what we do know is that he died. I watched the body cam footage, and I have to tell you, it really broke me. It was painful to see a human being in so much distress, only to have it end in tragedy. And I know many of you have families of your own, and I want you to think for a moment, if it was your loved one in that footage, would you be okay with how things were handled? I know that I personally wouldn't be.
And I bet if you were in Marvin's family's shoes, you would have questions. You would want answers, but you would want sympathy during this time period. I sent an email a few days reaching out to request a discussion on how we can improve responses to distressed individuals. I understand that investigations take time, but I don't understand is the silence. You are leaders of this city. And when incidents like this occur, it's not just the police that are being questioned, it's your leadership too. This isn't about placing blame, it's about addressing a real urgent issue. The absence of a response sends a dangerous message to the people of the city who need your protection the most. Black and brown communities especially, who feel their lives are not a priority. So I urge you to take action. Let's work together in partnership with community to address this crisis. But more importantly, we need your leadership and we need your empathy and your commitment to the people of this city to ensure that this doesn't become another inaction. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to testify?
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Kelly. I live in Shady Grove 3. We're here because of the lack of response from our leadership to our inquiry. I don't have to go over it again. But most disturbing was that this situation highlighted what could be some real issues that we need to discuss that might not have been on anyone's radar. Silver Spring Justice Coalition is a highly regarded entity within this county on the issues of policing. There is not anyone in this county that we can't get a meeting with except for you all. And I think that speaks to how you see us as less than. I don't think it has as much to do with race as the people that you can disregard the most, and that's people who are struggling, people who are of a different economic class. Mr. Garcia was placed in a position of restraint that is advised against. We need to talk about that. Is this in your policy? If it isn't, maybe that's something we should discuss. Should a person wait 15 minutes to have EMT come out to them before something happens? And most of all, this gentleman had stopped talking and breathing for at least a minute before anyone even noticed. Unfortunately, my introduction to Gaithersburg was due to SSJC and their work with the mother of Kwamina, Melody Cooper, whose son was murdered by Gaithersburg police. There has been silence where there should be no silence. There should be leadership where there has been no leadership, and I, for one, am disappointed in my leadership. I hold this community in my heart. I hit the street every day trying to be the best neighbor that I can be, and it is not my job, but it is my job. Minimally, when your constituents ask to engage with you about something like this, open your door and open your heart. You don't get to hide behind there's an investigation. We don't have to talk about that. We're here to talk about policy and procedure that may or may not exist, but we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I am shocked. I am literally shocked that I would get a no, that we would get a no just to talk about how to make sure this doesn't happen again, to make sure we have the correct policies on our books, and that people understand what those policies are. And minimally, don't restrain people in a death position. Minimally that. We need to talk, and we're not done. So I sincerely hope that we don't have to come back again, because I really don't have time. I got stuff that I really need to be doing. And it is not to come here to talk to you about something that really is common sense.
Do we have anybody else who'd like to testify this evening? Not seeing any. Let me just check on Zoom. If anybody on Zoom would like to testify this evening, use the raise hand function and I'll call on you. Going once, going twice. Not seeing any hands go up. Okay. We anticipated some of these concerns and asked our chief of police to make a statement. Chief, would you like to do that, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I certainly understand the concerns that were raised here this evening. Also the concerns that were raised to me personally on February 5th and the 6th. But the fact of the matter remains is that neither you nor I are allowed to discuss the facts of this case. It's in the general operating procedures of the Attorney General's office, and in particular the Internal Investigative Division, that nobody outside of the Office of Communications Unit for the Internal Investigation Division can provide any details to what happened on December 24th of 2024. It does specify that in the immediate aftermath of a critical incident, local law enforcement is allowed to release limited information that includes date, time, location, and the type of call that led officers to the scene. Any inquiries that come in after that must be released by the Office of Communications Unit of the Internal Investigations Division. The additional request was to have a meeting to discuss, in general, policies and practices, and as you heard this evening, how to prevent this from occurring again. Well, since we have this outside independent investigation, we don't have the facts of what occurred on December 24th. We haven't received those. In regard to transparency, the Internal Investigations Division has provided 5 press releases in an effort to keep the community informed, and they will continue to release information as it becomes available, only to the extent that it doesn't compromise their active investigation. When their investigation is concluded, they are going to release an investigative report to the public within 30 days of the completion of their investigation. So I understand and empathize with the requests that are being made, but at the end of the day, I don't have the information, and you don't have them because I haven't been able to give to you because we haven't received those investigative details yet. And I don't see how talking in general about policies and practices, where some cases what I'm hearing is conclusions have already been made based on some of the body-worn camera footage that was released. So they're not separate. You can't talk about one without talking about what happened on December 24th. And we don't have all of those details yet to enable that to occur. Okay?
Thank you, Chief. I will. We're not going to have disruptions in the meeting. We listened with interest to what you all had to say. I think it made an impact on all of us. I will clarify that from our perspective, at least I think I'm speaking for the council here. I'm sure I am. It's not a no in terms of talking about this. It's more of a deferral until we get the facts of this case. That's when we're going to be willing to talk about it. We are as interested as you are in the results and the report from this investigation. We are eagerly looking forward to it, and we will happily carry on a conversation with all of you when we have the facts to discuss. So we thank you for your interest, and we appreciate your partnership, and we will look forward to that conversation. So thank you all very much.
Could we hear from
Thank you. We have had public comments.
No, I'm asking, could we hear from the other?
We will. Thank you. So as mayor, I get to run the meeting here. This is a governmental meeting, and we are conducting the business of the government. It just so happens.
Just a question, so you're saying no, it's okay.
I am not saying no, and I would expect and ask that everybody, you've had your time to have comments, and we appreciate that, and we're going to carry on with the meeting. The next part of our meeting, next on our agenda, is from the mayor and council, and we will hear from council members, and if they wish to discuss it, they will, and if they don't, then my remarks carry about waiting for the results of this investigation. First, in from the mayor and council is Council Member Rob Wu. Rob, do you have anything for us this evening?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I appreciate it. I apologize for not being there tonight. I'm very much under the weather. I don't have any substantive comments tonight, but I do express my sympathy with the issues that have been raised. But the fact of the matter is, what the chief said is plain. We don't have the facts. This is a state investigation. Once the facts are there and we're released to be able to talk, happy to meet with any member of the community. Many of the folks that testified know who I am, and they know where to reach me.
Thank you, Rob. We'll go to Jamil.
No, I echo those sentiments. I think I look forward to the discussions. As I understand the state of the law, we're not allowed to speak until this investigation is completed. Once that's done, I think all of us here would love to engage and discuss and have a conversation.
You have a right to freedom of speech.
Thank you very much, Jamil. We'll go to Neil.
All right, so first of all, I want to take the easy one, which is about the apartment issue. Interestingly, there is some legislation that's been proposed by our state senator and our state delegate, one of our state delegates, relating to homeowners associations and condos that make meeting places available for organizing. I don't think it was discussed at that time about the need for apartment residents to have that right as well. I will pass that along to those people and see if it's appropriate for the particular legislation that they're working on, because it seems perfectly reasonable. I'll also suggest that our neighborhood services staff look into whether that's something that we could do as under the auspices of the city itself. In terms of the issue at hand, I think it's ongoing frustration on the list of constraints that we're under about things that we're not allowed to discuss. For example, if there's a matter of a development project or something like that that's before us, we can't have a conversation with it except in this meeting. And if there's ongoing litigation or investigations going on, we are forbidden under state law from discussing the merits or facts of the case until they're adjudicated. In the private sector, I'm used to having much more freedom to talk about things, but there are.
Where's the transparency?
Please don't do that again. We will not tolerate disruptions of this meeting. You all are welcome to be here. We heard you out. That was your time to speak, and we're glad that you did it. But that time is over. Please do not do that. I will have anybody who's disruptive taken out of this meeting. Go ahead, Neil.
Anyway, on a separate subject, I want to, since I missed the last meeting 2 weeks ago because of the flu, I want to thank my colleagues and city staff for their best wishes on my retirement from my day job. And I have to say, being retired so far involves a lot of coughing and flu-like symptoms, and I'm hoping that the rest of my retirement is less involved with coughing and sneezing. So I feel for you, Rob, and I'm 3 weeks in and I'm still coughing a little, but it's almost done. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Neil. We'll go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am sitting in this chair. I am bound by the rules of being a council member. It's no secret that I'm a Black council member. My information is public for anyone who wants to meet with me and understand my journey of how I got to sit in this seat. I would request that you not make assumptions about how I got to sit here, because the journey's not the same for any of us, right? We all go through different challenges and difficulties and to get where we are. It's not the same road. You don't know how I got here. So I would appreciate that those assumptions are not made. And if you want to know, I am more than happy to sit and talk with anyone. There are several of you in here that I've had the opportunity to meet and have conversations with, and I'm always willing to do it. When this investigation is clear for us to speak about it, we will. It's hard to sit and be patient and wait. I'm eager to know myself, but I'm bound by the rules of this chair, and I will respect that always, as long as I sit here.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo the comments of my colleagues. I share your frustration in not being able to have this discussion. Mental health, public safety, all incredibly important things to me. As Lisa said, you don't all know each other's stories. You know, I lived through an active shooter situation, right? Our police have a difficult job. I want to know the results of this investigation. And when we have the facts and we know what happened, I will be at the front of the line to want to have that discussion. But as Councilmember Henderson said, we are bound by the law, regardless of our own personal interests, regardless of our desire to get to the truth. So when and where we are able to have that conversation, I welcome it. And, you know, we will move forward. I appreciate the passion of the individuals in this room. I appreciate the sense of justice. I think we share that. I thank you for coming here. This is part of the democratic process. We want to hear this. We want this discourse. We're frustrated that we can't reciprocate at this time. But please know, we heard every single one of you. Okay? And we will carry that on when the time is right. I did want to bring up a couple of things. I did want to mention the apartment issue that Mr. Demetrius brought up. When we passed the Bill of Rights recently, I recall there being a section in there that required buildings and developments to make available space. And I'd have to check with the team, but I remember, I need to go back and reread it. But it was my understanding that that was being done and not have supervision. Unless I was reading the state, unless I'm confusing the different things, but I feel like that was a thing. That would be something that I would want to fix. So I want to look into that, and if it's something that we need to change in that ordinance that we just passed, then maybe that's something that needs to come back before us. And finally, I just want to recognize all of our federal employees that are our constituents that are going through a really difficult time right now, family members included, sitting on pins and needles wondering if they're going to have a job. You all deserve so much better than what's happening right now. You have been serving our country as dedicated public servants, scientists, analysts, fulfilling their oath to the Constitution. And I just want you to know that we're here with you. Like I said, you deserve better. And however we can provide support, whether it's through our Financial Empowerment Center, whether it's through WorkSource Montgomery, if you need to help find a new job. These are perilous times, and I'm sorry this is happening to you, but you're not alone. You're not alone. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Jim. I will appreciate first off, I appreciate everybody's comments, and I will note for upcoming sessions, Tanisha, have we made a decision about next Monday? Are we having that work session, or because we had a couple of topics and one of the topics dropped out? So when Tanisha and I spoke on the phone earlier, there was a question as to whether or not we would have a work session or whether we'd do the budget preview via memo. What did you decide?
I think the budget preview via memo will suffice, so we can cancel next Monday.
Okay. All right. So we will not have a work session next Monday, February 24th. The next regular meeting of the mayor and council will be on March 3rd, 7:30 p.m. You can participate in person as you are now or via Zoom. And we next on our agenda, we need a motion to conduct a closed executive session. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember McNulty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the mayor and city council of the city of Gaithersburg conduct a closed executive session immediately following its session tonight, Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, sections 3-305B8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation, and 3-305B1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction. The topics to be discussed are the county's response to the city's request regarding the county transportation impact tax and the potential appointment of Frank Johnson, acting city attorney, as city attorney.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
All right, all right.
When do we want
Please
it?
take it
Now!
outside the room.
Justice for Marvin now!
Please take it outside the room. Thank you very much.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we get any opposed say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And next, we're going to from the city manager.
Nothing to report this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, and I am told we are not having an economic development update, so we're going to move right into ordinances, resolutions, and regulations, and invite Rob Diebert, one of our stormwater gurus, Nancy Shum. Welcome, guys.
Good evening. Is guru an official title now?
Only in Rockville.
Exalted one?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, we bring before you an introduction to an ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 8, Erosion and Sediment Control and Stormwater Management. So a couple of an overview of the entire repeal replace will involve a lot of new terminology and language clarification and definitions throughout the entire code. This language will essentially be updated to be consistent with state and federal policy and regulation over, I'm not quite sure when the last time this was amended, but quite some time, just to make those brief updates. Along with that, there are design standards and references, manuals, inspection and permitting details, and also to include developing plan review deadlines that are consistent with our planning and code department as well. So I'm going to go through a couple bulleted items that are more, so I think more major than the minor language clarifications. So approved plans will remain valid for 3 years, which validated for 2 years with a potential 1-year extension. We also added language due to the basically the dense amount of manuals and technical standards that are used for the reviews. We incorporated a language basically stating that the most stringent requirement governs if there's any conflict between standards and manuals. Additionally, for alternative stormwater management practices, when those practices are reviewed, they need to be responsibly reviewed by staff with the purpose of providing safe runoff conveyance and ensuring a net impervious area on that drainage area. The stormwater management sketch plan can be submitted in place of a concept plan for mixed development zone only. This is because the strategy of the mixed development zone is a little bit different on the sediment erosion and stormwater management side, where a lot of the concept is already complete ahead of time. So we incorporated language where a sketch plan is only needed for this zone. Also, I already said that the review submission deadlines will align with planning and code, which will help both departments while making reviews. And we added language to specify inspections must be performed by a certified inspector, which is, MDE calls that a responsible personnel certification, which is a 40-question exam, about a 3-hour training that goes over all sediment and erosion controls and inspection requirements that you need in the field. For the stormwater program manual, so this is mentioned a little bit in the code as a reference to the actual manual that we're currently updating. We added that the property owner may petition for an adjustment to the stormwater fee if eligible for a hardship exemption. That statement wasn't in there beforehand. Also, we're making changes to our stormwater facility credit program and our Rainscapes rebate program. We are providing an increased incentives for residents that want to participate in either of these programs. And these were reviewed and essentially made more consistent with the city of Rockville and Montgomery County and nearby jurisdictions with the same rebate amounts and facility credit percentages. And lastly, on this slide, I believe it was back in early March 2021 where former staff presented the stormwater assessment from Wood, and that directly corresponded to the Common Ownership Community Transfer Program, which we plan to start implementing at the end of this month with a community meeting outlining all of our the policies and applications and who's eligible and what stormwater practices are eligible for that program. And lastly, we added the illicit discharge detection, connection, and elimination manual as Article 6 in Chapter 8. And those proposed updates align with future city goals. Therefore, staff requests to introduce ordinance and notify the public of a public hearing scheduled for March 17th, 2025, with anticipated policy discussion and final action on April 21, 2025. Are there any questions?
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Any questions or comments? And again, this is an introduction to go to public hearing.
I just have one
Go
comment.
ahead, please.
Just a comment of appreciation because I've been in the Environmental Affairs Committee and sort of seeing the reconstitution of the environmental group and sort of these things not coming to fruition. So it's great. Thank you for those efforts. Yeah.
Thank you. Rob Wu, anything from you?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Would someone like to move to introduce
So
this?
moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Were you there, Rob?
Aye again.
Okay. Any opposed, say nay. Carries 5-0. Consider it introduced. Okay. So next, Brian Helms from our IT department.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Brian Helms from the Information Technology Department. I'm here before you this evening to request consideration of a resolution to allow the city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract for a parking management and license plate recognition system. The city has an existing parking enforcement system provided by Passport Solutions. In support of ongoing initiatives to improve parking throughout the city, Request for Proposal 2025-11 for a parking management system was issued on October 22nd, 2024. The requested parking management system will replace the existing system and provide comprehensive services to manage both the city's parking permit and parking enforcement programs. 7 proposers responded to the RFP. For the core parking management system, proposers put forth varying schedules of fees, including fixed costs, volume-based costs, and mixtures of both. 10 years apples-to-apples cost estimates were generated and varied from approximately $372,000 to $684,000. These estimates did not include the optional vehicle-based license plate recognition enforcement. A 6-person scoring committee made up of staff from police, planning and code administration, city manager's office, and information technology departments scored the 7 proposals and selected 3 finalists. These finalists each provided 4-hour demonstrations of their systems to the scoring committee and an additional 9 subject matter experts. T2 Systems received the top score following these demonstrations. The top 2 finalists were then given an opportunity to provide a best and final offer, after which T2 Systems was selected as the proposed awardee. Staff then performed 3 T2 system reference calls and performed an on-site visit to Gettysburg Borough for an additional due diligence. Staff believe that adding license plate recognition to parking enforcement vehicles will improve enforcement efficiencies and provide increased levels of physical safety for parking enforcement staff. A recommendation was made to the city manager in favor of adding these capabilities to the city's 2 parking enforcement vehicles, which was accepted. T2's proposal, including the LPR systems, is made up of both fixed and variable costs. The 5-year fixed cost of the proposed system, including the LPRs, license plate recognition, that is approximately $247,263. The annual variable costs based upon estimated volumes of citations and parking permits is an additional $20,931.50 annually for an additional $104,567 over 5 years. Since both citation and permit volumes are estimates, staff are recommending allowing flexibility by setting the not to exceed contract value at $500,000 over the proposed 5-year contract term. I would like to take a moment to thank the city's procurement and legal staff, especially Kim Addison, for their hard work and support of this project, as well as the RFP scoring committee members and participating subject matter experts. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Brian. And thanks staff for all the work that's gotten us here. Did you have a question?
I just have a comment. This is, I may be biased, but this is why IT people should rule the world. I love how this was written. At the end, you got me with the LPR, that we're going to get LPR.
L stands for Lisa, just FYI.
So I just thank you for this work, and thank everyone for the work, and this is very exciting.
Thank you, ma'am.
I will just echo that. This is a long time in coming, and this will be a nice addition to the parking permit program that we'll be discussing very soon and getting that into place. And really happy to see the infrastructure being put in place to anticipate these future changes. So well done, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Neil?
So this is something that is obvious and necessary for the program, so I think it's great. My question is, the not to exceed seems a little on the high side, given that the numbers you have that are known comes out to about a little over 350,000. It's a lot of elbow room. Do you really think that much elbow room is necessary here?
I hope not. But as much as we like coming before the council, we also like to anticipate and not come back over the 5-year term. It really depends upon the number of tickets and citations. That's where that variable cost comes in. You're absolutely right. It's about $150,000 of overhead over the 5 years. So that's about $30K extra. So I think it's highly unlikely we'll get close to that.
It's like 2.5 times what the initial estimate is.
So what we've anticipated the variable costs are in here is about $20,000 a year. That's based upon the about 3,900 tickets that we issue currently. We don't currently have paid parking permits. So that 20K also includes the anticipated paid parking permits. If this body, if the citizens request additional expanded areas, which will then be reviewed by Public Works, and if those are adopted, that could significantly increase the number of permits, and then that could significantly increase the number of tickets. On the other hand, expanded and more efficient enforcement with the LPRs, it could make it go down. So, we don't really know how this is going to land, especially 3-4 years from now, based upon how the program goes. But you're right, it's a fair amount of overhead in there just in case.
So how are we going to budget this on an annual basis at this point?
So based upon my current conversations with Janice, we're probably going to hold flat with the outside of. So we have about $30,000 annually right now. The current contract is 11%, just straight cut of the $250 some odd thousand dollars of revenue we get from tickets. So this changes from that. And so at a minimum, we were always going to have that 30K that's still in the operating budget, and that's, I believe, going to go up about 16 in the first year in the operating budget, based upon just the additional maintenance for the permit. That'll be coming before you shortly, when you guys review the budget. But it's not like the operating budget's going to go huge. There's about $160,000 out of this in the first year that'll be paid for, mainly the LPR out of the technology CIP.
All right, it makes sense to me. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Rob, you got anything on this?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the amount of rigor that was placed in making the selection here. I will slightly diverge from my colleague, Councilmember Henderson's comments about IT professionals ruling the world. What I heard there is that the legal and procurement folks made this happen. So kudos to them.
Strong foundation we work upon.
Lisa, you want to move the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. K carries 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there's a song called "Everybody Wants to Rule the World." I think we're dealing with that here today.
Jasmine, you're back.
Hey.
Yeah.
So staff's before you with a resolution requesting the mayor and city council to authorize the extension of the Old Town District parking exemption requirement for an additional 5 years. In 2015, the council approved a parking ordinance for the city, and one of the provisions eliminated the parking requirements for properties within the Old Town District. Later in 2020, the council approved a text amendment to continue the no parking requirement within Old Town District for 5 years until February 23rd, 2025. This requirement was carried over into the new zoning ordinance that was adopted by the council in 2024 and permitted the council to amend this provision as a resolution rather than a text amendment. In conclusion, staff recommends that the city council by resolution extend the parking exemption an additional 5 years until February 25th, 2030. And while staff is recommending the 5-year extension of the parking requirement, staff will conduct further research on a possibility of a permanent elimination of the parking requirement within the Old Town District. Follow further research, staff will return to council in the future for discussion. A draft resolution has been included in the packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have this evening.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. This was originally just as a matter of context, originally intended to spur development, to foster more opportunities for redevelopment in Old Town. And it remains the reason we have it. We have a parking garage, so there is, the city is providing some parking for the area. And that was the thought back then. We've renewed it once, and now it's up for renewal again. Do we have any questions or comments?
I'd like to move the resolution.
Second.
Okay. Before we do that, Rob, did you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Okay. Carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Jasmine.
Thank you.
From the city attorney, anything from you, Frank?
Well, it feels like part of my job here recently has just been to keep an eye on the federal administrative orders and other things that are going on.
I don't know how you'd have time for anything else, honestly.
Well, we keep an eye on it. But fortunately, they have a lot of things to keep them busy, as it turns out. But you may have heard that, there's a Supreme Court case going on that actually was a request by the administration, and that is seeking to overturn a U.S. District Court order putting a TRO on in wake of the firing of the director of the Office of Special Counsel. That's basically the office that protects whistleblowers. And that was a 5-year term that started last year. The statute does specify essentially reasons for not doing a good job, malfeasance as reasons for termination, and it was an email dismissing without any details. So that's really the basis. And it was the administration seeking to have that overturned. They do see it as not consistent with what they see as the what has been argued as the unitary executive power to essentially dismiss anybody under their watch. And we'll see what the Supreme Court does, but that's the only one case that's at the Supreme Court at this point.
Thank you for that update. Anything from any other staff? Not seeing anything? Okay. Well, I will remind everybody, we do not have a meeting, a work session next week. The next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, March 3rd. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.
Recording stopped.